Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this philosophy conversation forum. So, last time when you all participated in this forum, probably you all would have been familiarized with the deconstructive method. And we had seen how we use the deconstructive method of philosophical research in order to then deconstruct certain elements of a particular issue or a particular topic. Today, we'll take a look at another method. And today's method is going to be the method of phenomenology. And we shall first take a look at what this method is all about. And then we shall take the issue that we have selected for today. And that is the effect of COVID-19 on the lives of students in particular. And I'm sure that all of you all would have experienced some kind of difficulties, or some of you all would have actually found some kind of advantages in having online classes and doing things in the virtual world. So probably we'll take a look at the method, then we'll analyze the issue, and then we can all chip in with our reflections and our sharings on today's topic. The method that we will be dealing with today is the phenomenological method. And I'm sure that by looking at the term itself, you all would have understood that this has something to do with experience and how we experience and perceive the world that is around us. So first, let us take a look a little bit about this phenomenological method. So here we see that there was a German philosopher, mathematician, and physicist by the name of Edmund Husserl. And he was the one who, in a way, gave a lot of impetus to this particular method. Now we see that his phenomenology revolutionized philosophy. And in this way, we see that we now understand reality from our own experience. And in such a way, we see that continental philosophy and hermeneutics have evolved from phenomenology. Understanding reality as a method in philosophy is definitely phenomenological. And in a way, we see that we understand the reality from our own experience. We experience the world, and from that, we are able to then analyze and look at certain elements. And this then helps us to be prepared for the future. So when we look at this phenomenological method, there are basically two features of phenomenology. First is that all knowledge about reality or the world must be the last analysis with a highly personal experience. So as you see, ultimately it all comes down to how I as an individual perceive the world around me, and then how does this experience shape my entire worldview. And next we see that phenomenology is concerned with meaning or perspective I have on objects. For example, a tree. You look at a tree, you have some kind of knowledge. You get some kind of experiential knowledge by learning about the tree. And as you move on in life, you understand various aspects of trees, etc. And then this enables you to create a kind of a perspective. Similarly, when we deal with friends, when we deal with certain individuals, we associate some kind of qualities with them based on our experiences. And this is basically what the phenomenological method will focus on. So when we look at phenomenology in philosophy, we see that it is the study of appearances as they are experienced in one subjectivity. We all know that our experience is very much subjective. What I may experience, an individual, another person may have a different experience of that same individual. And it is the study of the structure of consciousness, which is common to all consciousness. It examines the way in which phenomenology is constituted in or by consciousness. In a way, we see that it is the cognitive approach to the field of studying aiming at rigorous and interpersonal knowledge, and it also describes the intentional act and the intended object. So when you look at the term phenomenon or phenomenology, it basically is derived from the Greek word for appearance. And therefore, phenomena refers to a thing or an event that appears to human consciousness. And therefore, we can say that it is a study of manifestations. Now, when you look at this as a particular method, there are certain things that we need to keep in mind. Now, when it came for Edmund Husserl, okay, so basically for him, European science in particular and Western society in a way had lost direction. Okay, and especially from the time of the Enlightenment, we see that reason had become bifurcated from man's essential identity. That means the focus was quite widespread on various aspects. Nobody was actually looking at reality as it is. Okay, there were different perceptions, different reasons, and the whole reasoning process in a certain aspect had changed. And as a result of this, we then see that he was convinced that we should return to things in themselves. We should look at things as they are. And this method of approach, he advocated for the attainment of these ends in philosophy. And in a way, we see that he succeeded in relocating reason as an integral, a priori faculty of human consciousness. He also felt that this method of approaching phenomena in its pure state was very important. Now, as we move along, understanding this method, it will become much more simpler for us. For example, let's take an example of the world that we live in. So we live in a camouflaged reality. In a way, sometimes it becomes difficult for us to distinguish one particular aspect from the other. And why is that? Because we are caught up with so many different ideas. We are sometimes involved in so many different things that it becomes difficult for us to really understand one particular aspect as it is. Sometimes we may look at one particular phenomena, but the interpretation that we give to it may be completely different based on our experience of some other reality. And therefore, we see that just as we know, when we speak about camouflage, it is basically getting sort of mixed with the environment. And because the reality of today's world is this camouflaged reality, therefore, it is very important for us to sort of dissect and actually analyze what we really need to study on, or what is the area of research. At the same time, we see that there are many misinterpretations. And why are these misunderstandings taking place? Because each one, in a way, is trying to understand reality based on his or her own experience. And therefore, we tend to carry forward some of these misunderstandings that we have, and we apply this to other areas of our life wherein it may not even be connected. And therefore, we need to aim towards a more integrated life. We need to delve into something of what is called as a fruitful life, wherein all the elements come together, and then we have a more holistic view of reality. Now, looking at this particular aspect, we can say that we need to understand the effects of various events in the world. Now, we see that even a small event can create a whole ripple effect. Now, I'm sure many of you all would have seen the example of a good deed. One person does a good deed to another, and then it goes on. It becomes like a chain reaction. And therefore, when you look at various events, okay, and the effects that they have, it's like one event creating another, and the effects of that leading to the effects of the other. So in a way, it creates a kind of a ripple effect. Therefore, in order to understand the root, one must really go back to the starting point and analyze what it is. So when we speak about this, we need to learn the circle of praxis. Now, I'm sure in the on the first slide, you all would have seen a diagram of the circle of praxis. And there are basically 4 elements that we would include in the circle of praxis. So first, there is the action or the experience that we have about one particular action. Then you reflect on that particular action. So for example, if you are faced with some kind of injustice, okay, so that would be your experience, an injustice that you experienced, that would be the event. And then you come back and you reflect on that particular experience that you had. Once you reflect on this, then you try to find out why did you feel what you felt. Suppose if you felt angry or if you felt agitated, why did you feel like that? Then again, you reflect on that. And finally, you come with a praxis or an action plan that will help you to deal with the new reality. That means the next time you are faced with the same situation, you are now much more prepared in order to deal with that particular situation. Why? Because you have reflected upon it. Okay, you have analyzed the situation, you have dissected the situation thoroughly, and you know, based on your reflection, what you could have done and what you needed to do. And then that becomes your action plan when you face reality in the future. Now, let's take a look at the circle of praxis. So here you can basically see you have the action that is being done, okay, or the experience. Then you have reflection. You reflect on that particular experience that you had. You then develop a theory, or what we would call as a kind of an action plan. Then you reflect once again on it, and then you have the praxis, something that you're going to put into practice. Now, let's come to the method in hand. So here, first and foremost, we see that we need to identify the issue at hand. Okay, we have various issues, we have various problems in life. So if you take one of the current topics that is bothering you, okay, you place that problem at the center, you identify that problem. Okay, it's just like, you know, you kind of delimit the area. So from a general topic, you narrow it down to the specific, and you see what is the problem all about. What is the specific problem that you want to deal with? Next, you do a bit of research on that. Okay, you analyze, you find out certain things about that problem. Finally, you come with a collective action plan as to how you can tackle that particular problem. Then once again, you evaluate that action, and then you are ready to face the new scenario. Let's take a simple example. Supposing you see that in your village, there is a problem of water. There is water scarcity. So now you try to identify the problem. You ask yourself, or you ask those around you, is it because we get less rain? You would say, no, there is plenty of rain. But water is not seeping into the ground. The groundwater table is very low. So first and foremost, now you have identified the problem, that is the groundwater table is low. Okay, associated with that comes the issue that water is not seeping into the soil. Okay, the water is just running off and entering into the sea. After you have done the research, okay, as to why the groundwater level is not rising, okay, you still will get information as to what you can do in order to raise the groundwater table. You will also do a bit of research in finding out how you can allow water to seep into the soil. And then you realize that, okay, we need to plant more trees. Okay. And you take this as your action plan. So you begin to plant trees, okay, on the mountainside, and slowly you realize that, okay, things are getting better. Then you come to the next step. You evaluate the action. Okay, is it working? Do we need to do a bit more, or what we are doing, is it enough? After that takes place, you then take a look at the new scenario. And the new scenario could be any other problem, or it could be the same problem, but a different angle or a different aspect of the same problem of water scarcity. So having understood this method, we can now take the issue that we have selected for today's forum, and that is COVID-19, the effect on students' life. Now, as students, as humans, okay, all of us have faced various effects of the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, whether it is for working individuals, whether it is for family members, or even students, all of them have faced the effects of COVID-19 in various ways. Now, being in lockdown also had certain effects on the psychological health and also other aspects of the lives of individuals. And today we'll basically analyze, we'll narrow down our focus, our study on the effect on student life. As students, what were the advantages that we had because of this whole system of online learning, etc.? And what were the hardships, what were the difficulties we face? Now, you may probably ask, okay, this is going to happen once in a lifetime. Okay, so we are going to experience the pandemic probably only in this life. Okay, it's not going to happen in the future again. But if you analyze the whole COVID-19 pandemic, we see that there was a lot of uncertainty regarding the whole pandemic situation. Nobody knew what was happening and when what could happen. So therefore, analyzing this particular aspect of the pandemic will probably help us to become more aware, first and foremost. And secondly, it will help us to be more prepared for any event in the future, which also takes us by surprise. An event in the future which is very unpredictable. So therefore, analyzing this situation, we will then be able to understand first and foremost the situation better, and then it will help us to look at the future possible events. So first and foremost, the initial experience of the pandemic, probably as students, everyone would have been happy because first and foremost, there were no classes. Okay, so there was a bit of chaos in the academic circles. Okay, now I will later on share my experience as well because I had my final semester online. So initially there was a bit of chaos in the academic field as to how do we proceed with the situation. Now, nobody basically knew when the whole situation would come to an end. Some probably thought that it was for 2 weeks or a month or so, and then everything would come back to normal. But as you all already know, it was something which just kept on growing and increasing. And another important aspect when it came to the whole pandemic situation was that it forced each one of us to adjust to the difficulties. And therefore, there were a lot of difficulties that we were faced with, and we had to do a lot of adjustments, a lot of sacrifices, a lot of compromises here and there in order to fit into the system and also to make meaning or make sense of what was happening around us. Now, in this article, which is basically taken from the reader's blog, The Times of India, titled COVID-19 Effect on Student Life by Sai Prabhas Malidi. So the author here gives certain advantages that he felt and certain disadvantages on how COVID-19 impacted student life. So first and foremost, he says that, okay, students could now use their quality time in studying and other activities in which they were interested. And so in a way, probably they could, participate in other activities that give time for more extracurricular skills that they wanted to develop. Next, it also helped them to spend a lot of time with their family members. Okay. And moreover, since everyone was also working from home, there was no need to step out of the house and meet relatives. Okay. So in a way, everything was online. They could, like, spend more time with their family relations, etc. Okay. Even you could probably have more personal time with your loved ones. Next, also, it was about saving time. So probably if it takes half an hour for you to get to work or to get to school, now since everything was online, it also gave you a lot of spare time to engage in other activities. Secondly, also, there were a lot of loopholes in the system initially, which enabled some of them to basically take advantage of the loopholes within the whole online system, and thus, escape here and there. Taking a look at the disadvantages, uh, of course, we all know that there were loss of lives, loss of jobs, okay, and also the economy of the country was strained in this process. Apart from this, the students themselves faced a lot of hardships. And therefore, when you look at the entire pandemic situation, we see that the disadvantages outweigh the advantages massively, because we see that now in the online classes, okay, the attendance rate initially was somewhere around 50 to 60%, okay, or even the adoption rate in that case, whereas in the classroom it would be somewhere around 80 to 90%. Apart from that, we see that students also faced a lot of difficulties with regards to concentration, because it sort of was very difficult for students in order to sit for 5 hours continuously in front of the screen and focus on whatever was being taught. Next, we also see that there was no physical activity. Now, as students, we see that we all like to basically engage ourselves in sports. We all like some physical activity. But here, basically being involved full day or at least half day in front of the screen was very tiring indeed. Next, also, you have to feel for the students who could not afford to have laptops and computers. Okay. And in this way, a lot of them face a lot of hardship. Now, many students, especially in the rural areas, also face a lot of problem because of poor connectivity. And in a way, we see that it also led to a kind of a disadvantage for them. For example, if a student was bright, but he had uh, not developed his typing skills when it came to answering exams, okay, because of his slow typing, it could have impacted his academic performance. Next, also, most of the teachers had basically taken for granted that an online exam would be an open book exam. So even though if you had studied hard for it, if you had actually reproduced exactly, okay, by memory what was being taught, probably the professor or the teacher concerned would say, like, how do we know whether you have copied or not? So yes, so there were situations like this which impacted academic performance. Now, having seen the disadvantages and the difficulties that we face, we can probably ask ourselves the following question: how could we have approached this situation differently? Okay, what things we could have done differently in order to better adapt ourselves to this situation, or to have a much different experience of the whole situation? Next, what steps were needed to have been taken and by whom. Okay, what things could we have done on our part, and what steps could have been taken by those who were concerned. For example, maybe the teachers, maybe the school authorities, etc. And finally, can we come up with some methods or some action plan in order to remedy the situation? I'm sure that some of us still are having online classes. Some of us are still dealing with things in the virtual world. Is there a way in which we can somehow remedy this situation or think of an action plan in order to overcome the hardships that we face? Okay, so with this in mind, now I welcome you all to share your thoughts and reflections. Jito, can we start with you?
A very nice presentation. Yeah, well done. So the methodology, especially, I really liked it. Anyway, that was a beautiful repetition in somehow. Okay, that I have gone through. And moreover, students' life. Yeah, you have well pointed out a couple of challenges. Okay, especially on online classes where concentration and physical activity and all comes to it. Okay, but mm, yeah, it was good. That's anything else. If it is coming up, I will share it later.
Okay. Savio?
Yes, Father. Uh, Father, about the presentation, it was excellent, as Jito said. The thing is, before this session, I also referred to some other websites for some information. And I found that on one particular website, which is of UNESCO, they say that almost 5 crore 50 lakh 11,070 students have been affected worldwide. This is from a survey from over 228 nations which they have conducted. And like you said, in phenomenological theory, we have to first see at the problem. So the problem here was COVID, which took everyone unaware, because I don't think before this we have faced any situation like this on a global scale. We had some epidemics like plagues and all. Like I remember one was in the 90s in Surat somewhere, and but on a global scale, I think it was unexpected and it took every one of us unawares. So the problem which came out with it was threefold, according to me. First was children getting addicted to social media and video games due to the mobile and laptop which were made available to them. And the second problem is the financial burden, Father, which many people could not afford laptops and mobiles, and also the data charges which were there. So it was like out of reach for many of them. uh, and the third problem which I see is that the teachers had to adjust their teaching methodology for online classes, as well as the students. But I see it from the teachers point of view, it is like totally new thing for many of them, especially those who are elderly. And if we look at the how I could have approached this problem, like if we see now we have the cause, which is COVID-19. What was the experience, which is these 3 points according to me. And then as I reflect on this, I see how we could have changed it is, first was educating the children about the moral obligations which are on them when they are exposed to online lectures and classes, and how they have to face it. So that was actually a parental and the teacher's responsibility before exposing the children to the cyber world. Secondly, what parents could have done is, I'm sure many of them would have done this, like installing cyber nanny or some other programs to keep them safe from illegal websites and other such things. Then according to me, what government could have done was we have the data at school level about those who are financially backward. So such families and children could have been provided with laptops or mobile phones for their online classes. And something which no mobile company or telecom operator in a nation or even those in authorities thought of further. The fourth point is data charges could have been exempted for those who are accessing educational website, because if you see, there is already a data available with the telecom operators, like which person is using what. So they have a data like Facebook, certain person is using 70%, WhatsApp is used as 30%. So we have a data. So like those children who are using educational websites for the school purposes, their data charges could have been exempted, which can be done or minimized. Say 50% exemption can be given in these cases. But such a thing was not even thought on the authority or telecom level further in our nation, which is very sad, because many people whom I have met, they express their inability to, recharge almost $1,000 for 15 days data plan and all. So it was like financially burdening on many families on whom we have met, especially in the tribal and the rural areas. And then the last point is that teachers adjusting to new methods, they could have been more creative. They were creative, but it took a lot of time, in my opinion, how we approach this. But I see now that many of these issues have been tackled especially well. In many of the schools, teachers are coming up with new creativity and making it very interesting and all. So I see that reflection has been done on it to a certain extent, but we have to improve a lot regarding on the authority and the telecom level, and also on the parental and the, as guardians of children. So yeah, according to me, this is what praxis or phenomenologically thinking I can come to this conclusion. Thank you, Father.
Would you like to share your personal experience as a student, the difficulties that you faced in the online this thing?
Actually, last year we had a novitiate, so we were not much in.
No, but this, at least for these few months,
Yeah,
which
few months initially they were very difficult for me personally, because I'm not used to these online classes, and also initially to keep that concentration was itself very much difficult. I used to feel my mind was wandering somewhere else, and I had to force myself to just, you know, uh, to be concentrated on the topic which is being taught. And it was like you feel drowsy and all. No, it's not the fault of the teacher or anything, but we are not used to like sitting in one place and watching a monitor nonstop for 45 minutes. So even the eyes were starting to affect, and it was a bit taxing on uh, taxing psychologically also, like to sit at one place for almost like 3-4 hours, though there were 10-minute break. But I felt it was if for me it is so much difficult, then I can just imagine how these small kids might have gone through it.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Father.
Yeah. So yeah, if I can also chip in a bit, I can say that for me, I remember that my final semester was online. That means we just had 2 weeks of class, then you had the pandemic, and then there was the lockdown. That was somewhere around the 9th of March. So initially, the feeling was, I mean, none of us knew what this whole pandemic situation was all about. And practically, to frankly tell you all, I was in a way hoping that we would get holidays, because at the back of my mind was my final year paper which I had to complete, and I knew that even if I had to get 1 week, it would be a good head start for me, so that even if there were classes, I could somehow manage to finish everything on time. I had all the resources with me. It was just a matter of applying myself and reading through all the material and then getting my final paper done. So initially, our professors thought that for the first 2 weeks, they were like, okay, y'all, 2 weeks, we want have classes, okay, because of the lockdown, hoping that after Easter, now this was just before Easter when the lockdown was announced. So they thought that, okay, after Easter, we will resume classes. But then again, the lockdown was extended for another month. And then what they felt was, okay, some of them came with very creative solutions. Some of them, gave us certain topics. We had to write scientific papers on them, that is with the methodology following everything. And in this way, uh, we could actually sort of prepare ourselves for that particular subject. Some of them would send their recordings, either audio or video, and only there was one professor who would actually take online classes on Google Meet. So with all this, at the end of it, the exams, the way the exams are also conducted were very different, because even though it was taken for granted that it will be an open book exam, but the questions were formulated in such a way that you had to really apply yourself. So ultimately, if you have not understood the topic well, then probably it would have been very difficult for you to answer those questions. Even if you had all your notes in front of you, still, I mean, those notes were worthless if you have not understood it. You may know what it is, where it is, but then applying yourself for that situation. So it was this application type of questions, which at that time probably it would have been quite of a struggle for us. But as I look back at it now, okay, that experience has somehow made sure that I understood those topics and I learned those topics for life. So it wasn't just basically studying for the exam as normally I would have done. Next, when I look at this whole situation, it also opened up various possibilities. Okay, now the whole online teaching, yes, it was, I didn't have the experience of probably sitting, for 4 or 5 hours in front of the screen attending classes. Because since the material was sent to us in various forms, we could use or read those materials or watch those videos at our own leisure time. So in a way, having properly formulated my timetable, it also enabled me to engage in various other activities which probably I may not have got time for. So a lot of time was invested in hobbies, okay, because basically you could not go out for any sport or any other activities. You were like confined to the room. So in a way, it helped me to sort of deal with, focus or divert my time towards other activities, towards other hobbies, which otherwise I would not have found time. And on the whole, when I look back at it, yes, as Savio rightly mentioned, there was nothing done either by the authorities, okay, neither by the telecom companies. And surprisingly, there were not even that many discounts on computer accessories or any technological aids that were required for online learning. Okay, on the whole, you see that the rates of computer parts, okay, the rates of laptops, the rates of desktops just increased, doubled during the entire time. So for example, if earlier you could get a computer assembled for around 20,000 rupees, during the pandemic time, that same very specification would cost you somewhere around 40 to 50,000. And this again was something which I feel could have been avoided. Okay, the whole mentality of sort of making use of a particular situation for one's own gains. Okay, now we see that especially those involved in the IT sector, in especially manufacturing of all these equipments, etc., were the ones who would have profited the most, because their profits would have definitely doubled. Okay, and in a way, I see that yes, of course, it would have been much more easier for the students, for the parents of the students as well, if there was a bit of consideration by the authorities and also by the units that were manufacturing these particular equipments. So this is basically my perspective. Uh, Jones, would you like to share something?
During our classes, especially organic chemistry, cannot be taught in digital mode because they have to say everything chalk and talk. So that time now finding very difficult to concentrate. And when they go for a website, okay, let me go with the YouTube video. I watch one video, not satisfied. So simply for every minute, I jumped over the website to website. So finally, I learned nothing out of all the websites. So that kind of a problem. So that was the first approach that I had in my mind. Steps to be taken. Of course, it was a new pandemic for all of us. Earlier, we did not have, and no one would thought of it that would we have all these things. Of course, yes, true. But at least the government authorities, as you people mentioned, maybe reduction of the amount for the accessories regarding laptop or mobile phone, or earlier stage we had government side they'll produce or they'll give a laptop freely, cycle freely. So likewise, they would have asked students, particular school students, to come and collect their mobile phone for free of cost, but no steps taken. And one more thing, as you all mentioned, the amount for recharge. So I also would agree with that one. But still, and of course we are coming to end of pandemic, hopefully with God's grace we are finishing. So I think for time being I don't have any methodology to follow. So this is what I feel personally. Thank you for this chance.
Okay. Amal, would you like to share something?
Sure, Father, yes. First of all, I think in my third year of degree studies, I think everything locked down and I had to attend online classes. So then my feeling is that for me, lockdown and COVID, the classes, online classes and everything, it was a blessing in disguise for me personally. So instead of focusing on negativity or kind of disadvantages of the online classes or online platforms, what I personally feel is during the last 1 year or 1.5 year, there's a time that I read a lot or I learned a lot during those time. So for me, it was a blessing in disguise, that online classes and everything. So last semester, like in my final year of my degree studies, so I had to write a long form piece. So in my journalism, for the subject, so every semester we had to write a portfolio for that subject. So then we had to write some 13K or 15K words every semester. So last year, this long form piece I had to write about around 5 pages, and it was merely my experience of how I learned more, or it was was it a learning experience or something? It was a very kind of uh, very bad experience during those times. So it was personally, it was kind of a learning experience for me. And when I listened to some of my friends during the classes, even they were sharing about their personal gains, especially for the people those who don't speak in classes for some clarifications. For them, they're very big. They were confident to unmute and ask their doubts, because one of the students friends were sharing that here no one seeing who I mean nobody is focusing on one person, because in offline class we know that when one person asks a question, then lot of people look on that person, and in a way that person feels little bit of insecurities on something like that. So in this online platform, even introverts ask questions or give answers. So for them it was a kind of a boon for them. So even for other people, like I mean extrovert people, maybe for them it may be a little bit kind of difficult, that I can understand. And one other advantage is that a lot of people started new hobbies, namely maybe cooking. Some started cooking, or some started writing blogs. So they created a website and started writing. So there are a lot of creativity happened during the online classes, especially in my batch. So and one of my friends started writing poems, because she's interested in writing very good poems. So she writes and she posts it on the blog or in Instagram pages, and she got some reviews and things like that. So in a way, there are people who obtain money through online, what do you call, advantages like this. So that's all I would like to share in this kind of platform. Yeah, thank you. Whether you're on mute, Padma.
You are muted.
As a student, would you like to share some of your struggles that you would have probably had with the online classes?
As I said earlier, I didn't have much trouble or difficulty in
Okay.
online classes, because only one thing is that there were a lot of screen time. Like in a day, I had to like look at the screen for some 6 to 7 hours in a day. So especially during I had this psychology labs and things like that. So there I had to sit for 2 to 3 hours. So then apart from that, there was a lot of interaction happen during the online classes, because like this in every weekends, the professors, they share about their topics, like their favorite stories, or they take a particular theme, or they take a book and they introduce to the students there. So in a way, I learned a lot during online classes, and I had a lot of friends during online classes, because during offline, I didn't have much friends during this in-person kind of classes, because I was a person who was excited and enjoyed a lot during my offline classes, and didn't focus on much on my studies. So during the online classes, that was a time for me to reflect. I mean, because nobody's around me, so I'm alone. I'm all alone, and I was like, I had the time to concentrate and to listen to myself. So that was a time that I changed a lot. I read a lot. I learned a lot. So I wrote a lot. So there was not a negative. I cannot state a single kind of dissatisfaction during my online classes, because that was a time that I found myself. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Jito, would you like to share some of your experiences in this time, at least in the few months that you would have experienced as a student?
Yeah, sure. See, now last 3 months, of course, September, October, that was the time I had gone to the online course mode. Otherwise, it was always offline. So initially, also it was also a little challenging for me to get into the mode of study as such. The interaction level was very limited, especially with the companions as well as the teacher or anything. So that even however you, with all the methodology and the PPT and everything, the professor teaches or anything, still you feel bored at times. Your concentration level to the screen is much lower to that a classroom setup, offline class. And this one, your eyes get tired, you feel sleepy, you tend to this one get little down with this one. That was one of the thing. But on the contrary, I also felt okay. This was another platform wherein um, the crispness of the matter had come. Okay, rather in the class, maybe you have more elaboration. Maybe one topic you take it. Okay, some another person start questioning or question answer comes. It went on to another topic. There is always a carry forward action that happens in the offline class. Where in online class you are more dedicated. You have a stipulated um, portion to cover, things like that one. That way it was much more compressed and it was more a dedicated action use happen. So that is the both the side effects, this one positive as well as negative, that I could get. I could this one benefit from this online classes. Thank you.
So thank you all for your sharing, and for also coming out with certain kind of steps, like like some of you all really brought out various points as to what could have been done by various authorities or various sources, and what wasn't done. I think on the whole, you see that for those who were in a particular institution, etc., it was a bit easier. But when it comes to those who were in the rural areas, to deal with all the hardships, it was quite difficult during those kind of time. So basically, when you sort of now analyze the whole situation, I think when it comes to praxis, in a way, I think we can all agree on that, saying that when we encounter a situation like this, wherein all the odds are against you, it is also something I feel very important about reaching out to those who are disadvantaged. Now, I also know of a few people who sort of went out of their ways in making sure that those who were really deserving students, those who were needy students, were given access to these technologies which would enable them to sort of help them in the academic career. And in this way, in short, to conclude, I would like to say that yes, now our experience of this particular situation, of being in a situation wherein you're not sure of what is going to happen in the future, how the whole event is going to pan out, will in a way prepare you for a similar kind of event in the future. As I said earlier, of course, in our lifetime, I'm sure that we are not going to experience an event of this magnitude. But if you analyze in your life, you come across small incidents, okay, which take you by surprise, events of which you're not entirely sure of, whether it is with your personal life, whether it's with your academic life, or also with your professional life. So in a way, if you take a look, if you delimit these small events, these small incidents, and then reflect on it, okay, come up with an action plan, again evaluate that action plan, okay, finally you will be then led to a praxis wherein everything that you have done will then sort of make sense and help you to analyze and look at the entire worldview. So your experience will then in a way be a starting point for you to be prepared for the future. So once again, I thank all of you for participating in this philosophy conversation forum. Next time around next month, we hope we can have this session in person. And of course, there will be another philosophical method that we will be dealing with. So till then, thank you once again and have a good evening.